I am the Doctor, whether you like it or not, were the words that closed out the first full adventure for the 6th Doctor, beginning easily the most controversial and divisive era of our beloved Doctor Who. But with a criminally short run of just 31 episodes, spread across 2 seasons between 1984 and 1986, where's the best place to start with the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker? Are you a Doctor Who fan curious about the classic series but don't know where to start, or feel slightly overwhelmed by the whopping 695 episodes? Well, have no fear, as in this series I'll be taking you through a beginner's guide for all 8 classic Doctors, including 3 of my own personal story recommendations which in my opinion give the best representation of each Doctor and their respective eras. I'm Ruby, aka Hooby Jones, that's Petrol the Dalek, and you are watching the 6th Doctor Explained, a Colin Baker era beginner's guide. After 3 seasons and 1 anniversary special with Peter Davison at the helm, producer John Nathan Turner, or JNT for short, was keen once again on shaking up the format of Doctor Who. The plan was that after a particularly traumatic regeneration at the end of the Caves of Androzani, this new Doctor would, in Baker's own words, put the audience on the back foot a bit and be more antagonistic and generally unlikable, before over an arc of several seasons over several years, the layers would finally be peeled back and we would slowly return to the awesome, heroic and lovable Doctor that viewers have become accustomed to. Through no fault of Colin Baker's, who delivered stellar scene-stealing performances in every single episode, this decision, as well as many other factors, spectacularly backfired thanks to the greatest foe Doctor Who has ever faced. Was it the Daleks? Was it the Cybermen? Or was it Davros? No, it was this man. This is Michael Grade, and like any great pantomime villain, I want you to boo every single time his name is mentioned. As controller of BBC One, Michael Grade attempted to axe Doctor Who and placed it on an 18-month hiatus at the end of Colin Baker's first season, before renewing it for an incredibly short 14-episode second series. Colin's first season also saw a change to 45-minute episodes, creating mostly just 2-part stories, which in my eyes really ruin the pacing of these episodes, and it gives us just 1 cliffhanger rather than the usual minimum of 3 to which we had become accustomed. For these and a whole host of other reasons, the Colin Baker years are the most impenetrable to new viewers of Doctor Who, consequently making it honestly difficult for me to recommend some of these stories to someone new to the world of classic Doctor Who. It doesn't help that Colin's second season, The Trial of a Time Lord, is the longest serial in the show's history, running at a lengthy 14 episodes long and being so full of impenetrable lore and continuity that it acts as a meta-commentary on the show's own history and its potential cancellation. All that said, I personally really enjoy watching Colin Baker as the Doctor. To say that he was dealt a bad hand is certainly an understatement, and thankfully all these years later, Colin rightfully has been accepted and is beloved by Doctor Who fans at conventions the world over, and he seems like a really nice and lovely chap who I'd love to sit down with and talk to and interview him for this channel one day. So Colin, if you're watching, send me an email, I want to chat to you, bud. So yeah, as we go into my recommendations, take what I've just said as a little bit of an insight into why some of these stories may seem a bit off, or why they are the way that they are. Despite his incredibly short run, Colin Baker was able to battle some of the show's greatest villains, and does so in my first story recommendation for this video with Attack of the Cybermen. This was my first ever 6th Doctor story, and honestly I think it's a really good piece of Doctor Who, showcasing this new era and this new Doctor very nicely. Attack of the Cybermen sees the Doctor and Peri following a distress signal, which leads them to discovering the Cybermen once again lurking in London's sewers. This serial acts as a pseudo-sequel or prequel to Tomb of the Cybermen, as the Doctor and co end up on the planet Telos, where he is reunited with the Cyber Controller in a mind-bending plot to avert the destruction of the Cybermen's home planet of Mondas. Michael Grade was appalled by the level of violence in Colin Baker's first season, and yeah, this story is really unnecessarily violent, and frankly quite shocking even when viewed after one of the darker stories like the Caves of Androzani. There's a scene where the Cybermen torture this character Lytton, and the Cybermen grab his arms like this and they squeeze his arms so hard that he bleeds and blood shoots out of his arms while he screams, and genuinely, even as an adult, I find this scene really difficult to watch and really uncomfortable. Towards the end of the story, to get rid of the Cybermen, the Doctor just picks up one of the cyber guns and he just shoots and kills Cybermen in cold blood, which does not feel like the Doctor at all. Again, I can sort of see what they were going for in saying, this is the Dark Doctor, this is the Doctor now, he's not the same, he needs to re-find himself and be reborn, etc, etc. But in my eyes, it was a real misstep. Aside from these moments though, I think it's a really solid story and it's a really great piece of classic Doctor Who, which I can honestly recommend. Colin also fought some great new villains throughout his run, especially in my second pick for this video, Vengeance on Varos. Usually when fans of Doctor Who discuss the Colin Baker years, this is the story they bring up as a perfect example of what his era could and should have been. Vengeance on Varos sees the Doctor and Peri visiting the planet Varos to find a rare mineral which can actually repair the TARDIS. What they find on Varos is a dystopian state where viewers at home are able to watch and even vote on the execution of Varos' own citizens as well as its political leaders. It's a really great critique of the newly emerging world of reality TV and concerns over these video nasties and other gruesome forms of home media which were then becoming readily available to the public. As is the norm, the Doctor and Peri become entangled in this Orwellian web, with some very controversial scenes, including one which almost shows the Doctor drowning two men in a vat of acid. Peri is also the subject of a genetic experiment to turn her into a bird person. This really is some truly nasty stuff from a family show, but you can't help but be compelled to carry on watching, especially thanks to the villainous Syl, played by Nabil Shaban, who steals every single scene he is in throughout Vengeance on Varos. Syl represents one of my own personal favourite tropes in Doctor Who, which is the evil galactic corporation terrorising and ruining the lives of people by exploiting them for every single penny they're worth, without a care in the world for their own well-being. Neil Shaban's performance is nothing short of chilling, as he takes what on paper is a very camp and silly role and plays it dead serious, invoking shivers down the spine thanks to his slimy and gross villainy. Something that really can't be ignored, especially during this era of Doctor Who, is how incredibly sexist the show was, at least to me, during these two seasons. Sexism in Doctor Who for me is characterised by really good steps forward, and then these massive leaps back in terms of representation. In this era of the show, companions Peri and later Mel exist entirely as pervy male fantasies, deliberately clad in the skimpiest costumes and the highest heels by producer JNT, who is quoted as saying about Peri, "She'll often be wearing leotards and bikinis. A lot of dads watch Doctor Who, and I'm sure that they'll love Nicola." Peri is also very often perved over by the show's monsters and villains, who wish to keep something so beautiful as their own pet, as she's literally reduced to an object of desire for many of the stories she's in, with little to no character development, and even the Doctor just being absolutely horrible to her 99% of the time. Now, this is no slight on Nicola Bryant or Colin Baker, who are fantastic actors, who frankly made so much out of the tiny amount of material that they were given to work with. This is just one of my own personal observations about this era of the show and how frankly uncomfortable it can be to watch sometimes. Anyway, I'll be discussing this at great length in my upcoming video about female representation in classic Doctor Who. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Despite having such a short run, Colin Baker managed to not only bag himself a great Cyberman story, but also an unforgettable encounter with Davros in Revelation of the Daleks. This story sees the Doctor and Peri arrive on the planet Nekros, a galactic funeral home of sorts where the terminally ill and dying are placed in suspended animation, whilst the Great Healer works tirelessly to find a cure for their conditions. As you can guess, the Great Healer is actually Davros, who has been up to his old tricks, performing genetic experiments and using these bodies to create new Daleks, and also to turn them into food for unsuspecting people to eat, which is absolutely gross. What's really interesting about Revelation of the Daleks is that it's mostly just Davros watching the Doctor throughout the story, as they don't appear on screen together until very close to the end of the runtime, making Davros almost the main character of the show. Terry Molloy once again gives us a stellar performance of Davros in this incredibly bleak story, which I hardly ever revisit because it's just something that's too dark for some casual escapism when I'm about to go to bed. Nonetheless, it's a great story for Colin's Doctor, and the final of his first season, closing the most controversial series in all of classic Doctor Who. Now, I've only just scratched the surface of the behind-the-scenes shenanigans of this era of Doctor Who, and the mistreatment of our beloved Colin Baker at the hands of the evil Michael Grade. What's really funny about this is Michael Grade says, "Oh, Doctor Who looked so cheap at the time, so we had to get rid of it." Michael Grade was the man responsible for the budgets. He could have poured more money into it and kept Doctor Who alive and kept it going, but no. He did what he did, and he ruined the show, and he ruined Colin's Doctor. To top things off, after Colin's eventual second season, the programme was renewed, but with one condition, that there was to be a new Doctor, effectively axing Colin just as his Doctor was about to find his feet and was about to become great and have some amazing adventures. If you want a more in-depth look at this era of the show, there's two videos I'll recommend. The first is Clever Dick Films' excellent documentary about the Colin Baker years of the show, which is an in-depth academic exploration of all the facts of what went on at the time. And the second is a video by Dirk, or DRK, I think is how you pronounce the channel, discussing whether the idea of such a dark arc for the Sixth Doctor was a good thing. Both of these videos are linked in the description, and they are absolutely recommended. I promise things will get slightly sunnier in next week's video, all about the 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Who Be Jones YouTube channel.